When I was a child, if I was sent to get something, I'll make sure I recite that thing as if my life depend on it. I'll sing it as a song continually so that I will never forget. This is because I was not conversant with the thing or the word. They send me on an errand and then to get this right. The only way I could get it is continually saying this. Does this happen to you, or you know somebody who have this same application, or you know somebody who have had the same experience? Our mind is built in such a way that continual development and habits bring massive information down there. Our brain is wired such that we retain information when we continually say it over and over and over again. So when we are saying over and over again at every interval of our saying, we have a level of retention out of habit and out of the thing we continually say we hold us down. This is not a story of a child, but this is a story about all of us and how we learn fast. Some years ago, people like Henry Ford, Steve Jobs, and the likes of them we call and tag as retarded. Retarded in the sense that they could not think for themselves. They took a longer time to process whatsoever they had taught. This was not true. Why did I say it was not true? Because their level of comprehension or understanding was not applicable or same style with the other children. You see? Now, do you have this complexity, or do you know somebody who have this complexity? I will explain how this kind of person can learn with specificity based on their level of knowledge. Learning differently exposes you to your own specific kind of superpowers. Without taking your time, we will discuss 3 most strategic kind and form of learning you should consider. So when you see yourself not too comfortable with a way or a style of learning, then you can switch to the one that suits you. After this class, then you understand the kind of learning style that's perfect and suitable for your kind of person and the things you should pursue as a career or a lifestyle based on this learning pattern. There are 3 most important ways people learn, and these 3 ways are not just limited to these 3, but these are the 3 most recognized around the world. You understand? Irrespective of race, color, religion, culture, these are the 3 most effective way people learn. If you're a kind of person that interprets words, character, and form them into life. For instance, you read a line in a book that says, a man lives in a 2-story building and then his servants attend to his need. Quickly, you build a mental picture around the line and then form something that is like a 3D hologram effect in your brain, which only you understand. These people are known as the visual learners. They learned by visualizing, by building imaginary effects in their brain as a demonstration of what they have read. This is the way they used to remember. This is the way they used to become more creative with what they learn. This way, it helps them retain a whole lot of information because forming this mental picture builds a story around them. And by building this story, the information is retained in them. They continually learn by forming mental pictures of whatsoever they read or study. These people are called the visual learners. They learn and interpret what they learn visually, building mental picture like a 3D effect in their brain, which they understand and they can interpret. So some career paths to consider as a visual learner, basically these are people who are creative. Career paths to consider: creative part, creative design, cinematography, people who usually create things out of nothing. These are visual learners. They are visual learners, and that is their specific superpower. So visual learners, take your flower, take your flower, take your flower. You guys are just amazing. So number 2 are the auditory learners. Those guys that their ears is as fast as a cat. They can listen and hear whisper from a distance. These people are most interesting. You know why? Because one of the ways they convert their own learning is audio. They listen and they listen attentively. If you check their retaining strain based on the audio they listen, they will give you 95. Because the research was conducted and then a control experiment and a real experiment. In the experiment, an auditory learner was put in a place of no disturbance to listen to an audio and then replicate what he heard. Of course, he gave 90% retention. And then another experiment where the same auditory learner kept in a place with little disturbance and he still gave 85% retainership based on the information that goes to his ears. These guys have superpower to hear. They are good listeners. When they listen, they retain. They might not be visually appealing, or they might not have the visual strength to build mental picture like the visual learners, but the auditory learner learn more by listening. Just by listening, they retain this information, and retaining this information, it is in their brain. Over time, they develop this capacity, and that's the best way they learn. So, career paths to consider as an auditory learner: musician, podcaster, and every other thing, lawyer, every other thing that revolves around listening to understand faster than. Now, the third kind of learning pattern is amazing. But before then, if you're just stumbling on my channel, please do well to like, subscribe, and follow. If you're getting value from this, please like, subscribe. This is a way to promote the work that we do. Number 3 kind of learners are the kinesthetic learners. These guys are simply amazing. These guys are the only guys that work by touch. How do I mean? Everything they need to learn or understand, they must function with their hand. So if they have to do a certain things, then they must work with their hands. They are not interested in the visual display. They are not interested in hearing too much. But these guys are interested in using their hand to work. Using their hands to work help them assimilate faster, help them retain faster, because by so doing, they can quickly remember what they learned and retain that information. So kinesthetic learners are the bakers, the chef, people who use their hand to do a whole lot of things. Those are kinesthetic learner. I believe this video really makes sense to you, because today we've talked about the visual learners, we've talked about the auditory learners, and we've also talked about the kinesthetic learner. You of course know where you belong to. This does not necessarily mean that a person who is a kinesthetic learner do not learn as an auditory. It only means that kinesthetic learner have a priority such that whenever they need to learn, they use their hand first. That is the most important thing. They are kinesthetics. And people who visualize first, they are visual learners. People who visualize first are visual learners, and people who take audio as their first consideration are auditory learners. So find this placement for yourself and whoever that is around you who is willing to understand their learning superpower. Develop on this power, and of course by now you know where you fit better to your productivity. My name is Arch Weston, sir. See you soon.